Do you want to keep that on?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll keep it on.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I am Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Why is there death in Star Trek? It's the future.
Why couldn't they just
Why don't they upload?
transport them so that they untransport them and without the problem?
Yeah, there was a TNG episode where they met the people that uploaded too. The post singularity people.
Well,
Didn't they?
I don't know about
Is that right?
TNG, there was definitely, you talking about transporters, two big transport episodes in Star Trek Next Generation. One where they brought Scotty back. He kept himself alive indefinitely. Stored
transporter buffer.
Transporter buffer.
Yeah.
In a cycling transporter buffer.
That was also the Dyson Sphere episode, wasn't it?
Was the Dyson Sphere
Dyson Sphere is such a dumb idea.
What is the Dyson Sphere? I can't remember. I remember the Scotty episode, but I don't remember this.
So the episode's called Relics.
Yeah, the Dyson Sphere is the idea that you'll take all of the mass in the solar system and instead of wasting it in planets, you build a sphere of loosely connected tiles around one orbit that all orbits at the same speed, and it collects all of the energy from the sun.
Right.
So now it's dumb for a couple of reasons.
When taken to its logical extreme, we get all of our energy and life from the sun. Mm-hmm. And if you were to get a tiny fraction of that,
of its energy,
if you were to cover a solid sphere around that, you would get all of it.
And also you'd have essentially infinitely more surface volume, livable surface volume.
Right.
The problem is there's not enough mass in the solar system.
Right.
Unless we made like a aluminum foil thick layer, basically. The other problem is that clearly no one's ever done this because we don't see stars just turn off. So in theory, if we are in an infinite universe, we can look at hundreds and hundreds of thousands of stars. If people were building Dyson spheres out there and there's any kind of and there's other people at the same civilization level or close,
right,
there would be stars that would just turn off all the time.
That only presupposes that during the very tiny period of like 150 or 300 years, let's say, that we've been examining the night sky, that a completion happened during that time, which is given the probable construction time of a Dyson sphere.
Well, it's
unlikely.
No, it's an exponential process because you build the machines that build the first piece, and then those machines build the next pieces, and you build two machines. I don't know. It's a terrible idea.
It's a good question.
Yes. So anyway, Scotty was in the Dyson
Sphere.
Sphere.
And they've got James Doohan, right?
Yeah, they did before he passed. And the other major transporter episode was where Riker was involved in a transport accident, and he had split into two people.
He double Riker?
He double Riker, except one was still a lieutenant. The younger Riker stuck on the planet and ran into conflicts with
So is it beard, no beard?
No, they're both bearded.
Oh.
I remember there's one episode where I can't remember who it is that gets him hot and bothered. It must be Deanna Troi because I don't think it's Tasha Yar. But he
never speak her name again.
Unless you're Data.
What? Oh, right. Are you fully functional?
I'm fully functional.
It was. There's a point at which he's walking away from an interaction that obviously got him a little bit worked up, and he's like, "I'll be in the holodeck."
Oh, wow.
Swear to God, totally happened.
Now, you know the holodeck was invented as purely a masturbatory device.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, you'd think that in the future, the thing that's changed in the 300 years is lubrication technology has advanced, or else they'd all be just chafed raw
Who wants
all the
to clean
time.
the holodeck? No one wants to be the holodeck
Mop boy?
Holodeck mopper.
Wow, this escalated very
the force
quickly.
field emitters are stuck at jammed again.
Oh, jeez.
The light's being diffracted.
Yeah, we took a beautiful vision of a utopian future and
like that
sullied it.
in science fiction movies.
Yeah.
Many science fiction movies, such as Sunshine and that TV pilot, Ron Moore's TV pilot, Virtual Reality. The idea of virtual reality being used for long space journeys is used as a psychological treatment.
Yes.
Stimulus. And
that makes tons of sense.
Makes tons of sense, and it's a very optimistic view. But no one turns that to the dark side.
No writer does.
No writer.
Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of writers in the dark corners of the internet that turn that stuff to the dark side. But if you're talking about the people that get millions of dollars to make a film about it, probably not.
Probably not.
Speaking of,
yes,
I think we should talk about speech writing.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's a perfect transition there.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well done.
Seamless.
Well done. First rate.
A couple weeks ago, we were at South by Southwest, and you gave a talk on the big stage.
Yes.
And then afterwards, we sat down and talked about like what the process is for speech writing, and when you're talking to a large crowd of people, because it's one of the more, like, if you look at the list of the most common fears, it's like fear of heights, and then fear of public speaking are usually tied for 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I don't suffer from a fear of public speaking.
Well, you do a lot of it.
I do a lot of it.
Did you ever?
Not that I can remember. I started doing public speaking. I mean, first, I was an actor. I spent time as an actor as a kid and in my late teens. When I was working at Industrial Light and Magic in 98, 99, I realized that sometimes they sent employees out to do public speaking events. And I threw my hat into that ring and actually got several gigs from them, including going to the Breckenridge Film Festival in Colorado and representing ILM for a 2-hour talk.
So what are those? Are those talks like? Are those like sharing expertise and techniques and stuff like that, or is it?
Well, it's kind of whatever you'd want to do. So that was fascinating to me because I got to go into the archives, pick out a carousel full of archival slides, some of them labeled "Revenge of the Jedi." Right. And I got to build a talk with a slide carousel and more.
It's like PowerPoint, but it's static, right?
And more than that, though, it turned out that, having read every issue of Cinefex, I really did have this deep well of understanding about the history of special effects and Lucasfilm's place in it. So I was actually uniquely qualified to talk about the effects we'd done for Star Wars, the effects that led to that, the technology, how it progressed. And then I also was able to grab videos from the video library that also showed transitions. You know, those videos where you get to see the blue screen and then the CG and then you see it all together. Yep. They've got hundreds and hundreds of those for every movie.
That special that they ran on CBS after Star Wars, like after the first airing of Star Wars on network TV, it was magical.
Oh, no, I know. And there's so much of that stuff. So at one point, I remember on the Industrial Light and Magic internal web server, they have a listserv. So I posted, wow, I just saw Meet Joe Black. The car accident where Brad Pitt gets hit is insane. And then Neha Wickramasekaram, who was a friend of mine at ILM, she was like, actually, she ran the archives for the video. And she said, actually, we have that. We did
so you could see
And I was like, really? So I got to borrow the video, go home and watch it, and watch all 5 elements of the car crash. Brad moving, a briefcase flying, a fake car coming in, a real car coming in, there's plates, and watch it all assemble.
Wow. Show reels are the best.
Yeah.
And effects houses.
Oh, right. So I wasn't nervous doing that.
Well, because you know the material really well.
I knew the material really well. I definitely have moments on stage, usually when I'm interviewing somebody. That's when I actually get the version.
We've actually talked about that.
We have talked about that. But when it comes to public speaking, I try and make sure I have material I really am comfortable with.
So those are two different things. The fear when you're interviewing someone is that you're not going to ask, like you run out of questions.
Yeah, totally terrified of that.
Because the thing is, no matter how well you prepare for that kind of interview, Norm knows because you just did it.
I know.
Right.
We'll talk. I wasn't that bad, was I?
No.
Okay.
It was South by. First of all, I never had stood in front of 3,500 people before.
Oh shit! You did great.
You did really well.
And I'm looking at you the whole time. So the video of the interview and your keynote is on tested right now for people who haven't seen it yet. But you had an hour booked for your speech. And it was like a 25-minute presentation. And I sit there, I'm going through questions. I'm looking at you the whole time because the audience does not exist.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
Well, and that's the thing. You guys had what felt like a very personal, kind of situation where somebody sits and reads questions from Twitter to the other person.
I am really glad at some of the stuff we covered in that Q&A. Stuff we hadn't covered before, but because you know me very well, we got to go over some stuff that most people don't usually get to.
And I had a good sense of the stuff questions you'd answered before, but also trying to bring it to a new audience. But you're right. I after what felt like the longest time, I looked at the timer because there was a clock counting down, and
you still had like 15 minutes left. Or
30 minutes left. 5 minutes had gone by.
Oh yeah.
Well, and at least you had questions piped to you, so you weren't responsible necessarily. You did good follow-up questions, but you weren't responsible for the
several really self-generated.
Yeah, so I came to, I'm going to ask like 5 questions that I'm curious about.
Yeah.
And then, but you're right, when you're interviewing someone, your brain power is split. Like
you're trying to listen, but you're trying to think of what the next question is. And then you're trying to segue. Oh, is this a segue to one of the questions I have prepared? And then really so much brain power gets used up with this. Oh, that's a great comment. I can use that to segue the thing.
Yes.
I will remember that. I'll remember that. Wait, what did you just say? Oh my God, he's done. What did I want to say? I don't remember. Fuck.
Or then they keep going and you lose that opportunity to segue. And
totally.
So it's just, I'm going to stop after this, but it's why when you see a talk show and it's a live talk show and you know that they have the earpiece and producers in their ear, I a lot of respect for those people because it's a hard job, but they also have the power of multiple minds behind them and somebody who has the ability to write stuff down, which
and give follow-ups.
Exactly.
But so as far as South by, so that is also, I have given talks that I consider unsuccessful and talks that I consider really successful.
What's the marker?
Well, unsuccessful. One of my problems as a writer is I tend to tell, not show. I'm sure that now I'm revealing this. I'll get comments of people, Adam, you're telling, not showing. I always have to remember to myself when I'm writing something out, give examples, take time to explain this thing.
That's one of the things that when you do the kind of writing that Norm and I do, it's the key. I have too much brevity is my problem when I edit myself. I'm like, wow, you've just burned through 4 subjects in 1 paragraph. Well, the tendency is to write for what you know, not write for what your audience knows.
And so, frankly, I think that my keynote address at XOXO conference a couple years ago is an example of a talk where I had a great point and I just didn't establish it or develop it enough to drive it home. And I plan to work on it.
It's on the site, by the way, if you want to check it out.
I've watched it a couple of times. I think the South by one, while I went through it a little quick, and I think that there's a couple of good reasons for that. One is that halls like that are really dead. And I mean, sound-wise, I can't hear the audience at all.
You don't get feedback.
I get no feedback, which is really difficult. I thrive on that feedback from the audience. And when the room isn't giving it to me, I don't know which lines of attack I should develop and which I should not.
You got to hear what they're laughing at. So
I tend to speed up when I don't get feedback. That's one thing. I also think there's a couple points in my South by talk that I could have developed a little more, but overall, I am really, really happy with its layout and its trajectory and its main point. I felt really good about it as a document.
So then does that just go into your briefcase of things that you can talk about or expand about on further length?
Well,
or is that
I had given when we were at South by, I said I had done a version of the talk for a corporate client a few weeks before to kind of see how things were laying out. It's funny. I don't tend to give talks. I tend to workshop them to a goal. And then once I speak at that thing, I'll just park it. I could give it again, or I could even refine it and make it much better. But for some reason, there's a part of me that always feels like that's cheating, which is totally ridiculous, right? Because the first time I gave my Maltese Falcon talk was at an event that IDEO had, and Kevin Kelly came up from Cool Tools, from Wired, from everything. Kevin came up and said, that's a nice little talk you worked on there. It's very personal and very engaging.
Did you know Kevin at this point?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah, we were friends. And he said, you should work on that. You could turn it into a really nice talk. And it had never occurred to me to workshop something.
Yeah.
So then I went and did it at Porchlight at Cafe de Nord, and I did it like 2 more times at other events to kind of refine and cajole it into something.
It's the thing that Chris Hardwick talks about on his podcast a lot, that when he does a stand-up show, he goes back and listens to the tapes, and a lot of comics, I think all the good comics probably do, to see where people react, because you can't be doing it and remember at the same time.
And I did a ton of that on this last tour with the Behind the Myths tour. I had tapes every night. I wasn't listening to the entire show every night. I was specifically attacking groups of jokes or sections of the show that I thought the writing could be tighter or the transitions could be better, or I just knew there was a laugh that I wasn't getting and I was greedy for it.
Okay.
So this talk, the one I did at South by, I think I will work it a bit more. And I will adjust it and modify it and try and develop it into something a little more robust, because I think
it's a good topic.
I'm very pleased with the topic. I'm very pleased with the message. There's so much material I developed that I didn't put in there. So many pieces of ideas that didn't need to make it in. But now I see there are places where some other stuff could go, some development, more of a deep talking about like what it's like to stand in front of a Pollock and stuff like that.
We've talked about like performance before and in comedy, but it's amazing what the disconnect there is between what resonates universally across audiences nationwide, like when you go on tour, and how unfamiliar you are with that, and where that can come from. You don't realize that is the thing.
You also don't know what's going to resonate. I mean, I've been amazed reading all the tweets since South by of sound bites of things I said either during the talk or during the interview with you or in the blogging room or in interviews after. The things that stuck are not things I expected. Yeah. Like I'm there on stage with you and we're talking about feeling like a fraud. And I said, getting notoriety for what you do only increases your feeling like a fraud. And I got no response from the audience, right? I could see I'm like not getting a response. And I thought, okay, let me develop this a second. Oh, only you know how truly lazy you are. And that got the response I was looking for. And I was like, this is great. I love talking about this in public because everybody who gets notoriety for what they do feels it. Yeah. It is a universal human emotion, and it's almost never, ever talked about.
Well, the thing I told one of my business managers years ago, the guy who ran the business side of something I was doing at the time, was that everybody who creates stuff is maybe not cripplingly insecure, but insecure about what they do. And because he would come in and treat people not intentionally poorly, but as if he was working in a like sales room or something like that. It's like, dude, you can't do this. You're going to break these people. They'll be crippled and unable to continue working for the most part if you come in and swing the way you were swinging. But that knowing the room is important. That South by crowd is a crowd of people who make stuff.
Yeah.
And they're going, and XO is the same way.
It's a smart crowd. And I also prefer those audiences. Not to say that there are dumb audiences, but there are audiences that get a specific genre of my jokes that I particularly liked speaking for.
Yeah.
Science Teachers Association, whenever we've spoken there, California Science Fair gave the keynote there a couple years in a row. And, the geek crowds are the people, right? But at the same time, the responses that you get in different markets for different jokes during the Behind the Mist tour is totally a fascinating education in what people respond to.
You mean Texas and New York laugh at different jokes?
Totally. And you get different. Yeah, absolutely. And the flavor is different depending on the town and depending on how far it is from a major urban center. I mean, all of these things.
When you were in Oklahoma, did you wear cowboy boots?
No.
Okay.
Adam, also, I know one thing I noticed, you don't have stage voice.
Oh, I mean, I don't modulate my voice between being on stage and being off stage.
Yeah. It's just Adam voice.
Yeah.
Adam radio, Adam podcast voice, Adam stage voice, Adam sitting in the shop voice. They're all the same.
All the same, which is great.
Well, I mean, I think that's a little hard one from being on Mythbusters for so long. I'm sure that there was more of a dichotomy back when I was first doing it before Mythbusters. But, after having watched myself for so many weirdly large number of hours from Mythbusters, I'm really clear that my brand is me. My stock and trade is being as me as I can be, as natural.
One of the things you did at the South by talk that I've not seen you do before was you did slides.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that I think Larry Lessig does famously. Will Wright, the creator of SimCity and Max's stuff and all that, did a talk, I think at the Spore launch at the Academy of Arts and Sciences.
I remember hearing about this.
That was, I think literally he was doing 3 slides a second for maybe 30 minutes. It was unbelievably, like you were just getting this hint of an image.
Yeah.
And he probably blasted through 1,000 slides in a 20-minute talk.
I love doing that. That's how I wrote the Maltese Falcon talk, was something like 175 slides in 10 minutes.
It's interesting because you can be talking about one thing, and it's a thing. I took a class in college called Pop Culture and American Politics, which basically was a comparison of Ronald Reagan and John Wayne, because the guy's whole point was all the lessons. Ronald Reagan wanted American voters to think that he was John Wayne. He was going to come in and save them from the communists. Anytime there was bad news, he would go to the ranch in California and ride a horse. So that the footage they would have of him from the day was him Reagan riding a horse, and the terrible economy news would hit. But you'd think, oh, Ronnie's riding a horse, everything's fine.
Wow.
And that
particular kind of genius.
Well, yeah, but that imagery, like that type of presentation does the same thing. It pumps those images into the back part of your brain, the reptilian back mind, where you're just thinking, oh, dog, cat, Adam said something, dog, turkey,
chicken,
whatever.
Monkey, duck, chicken,
exactly.
Monkey, duck, chicken, monkey.
Yeah, and it's a really powerful thing, and it's neat to see it done when it works well. And I wondered if you've been like actively exploring that, or if that's something. I
hadn't actively been exploring other people's doing of that, but I particularly like, that's sort of how I think. And I think I just want to support this with these ideas and these pieces. And
but it's also really personal, because it's you saying, hey, this is what's in my head when I'm saying this, as opposed to me filling in that information with your words.
Right.
So it gives us a glimpse into what you're thinking at that time.
Well, I also want to say something that most people might not realize is I'm very late at doing the final versions of my talks. Yeah. I think about them for weeks. Mm-hmm. But that gestation, and I've really grown to understand that this is my MO. I am a bit of a procrastinator, but at the same time, I'll start thinking of the major themes. And then once I have like a major theme locked that I know I want to attack, then I start to use that to look at the other themes. And then sometimes I outline a bit. With the South by talk, I wrote a bunch of placeholder slides about the beats, and I would literally write just picture of this, picture that, picture, and I just started adding those, and then I started throwing in pictures. And actually, once I start throwing in pictures, the talk takes on a very different shape because the pictures really inform the way I'm thinking. They really help me understand the thrust of what I'm thinking. This picture is saying this, and I'm saying this. Actually, I need a different picture, or I need 4 more in order to get this point across, so I can move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I love that form. I really like also where the words come and join. So you get these picture jumps for long periods of time, and then the text shows up and it's matching what I'm saying and gives us a sort of follow the bouncing ball sort of effect.
But it's all about content. I mean, the important thing to note is this isn't PowerPoint tricks. This is all about content, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
You're not doing all sorts of animated fly-ins and twirls and swizzles and sparkles and all that bullshit. No, and I never put video in them because I hate that. It never works right. Right.
Timing.
The timing is always awful.
It's always a 3-second lag while the video cues.
It just doesn't work. But I really like, I find that really engaging when people, when I see talks like that.
Animated GIFs.
And
that's
also,
the future.
In terms of animation,
they take a gigawatt of power.
1.1 gigawatts. Hey,
sorry.
There's a giraffe outside waiting for you.
Oh my God. On the flip side, people taking great speeches and then throwing visuals in front of them.
Yes, that's got a long history.
Yes, and even though it wasn't the same person, if it was a great famous speech, but it's evoking those images, a shared sense
or
of
animating
imagery,
them even sometimes.
it becomes collaboration.
I definitely need. I was watching some tapes of the Behind the Myth tour this weekend because we're working on new versions of stuff and updating it and actually rewriting it. And one thing I am noticing is I can slow down. I can definitely slow down. I tend to move fast, and it's partly it's an economy for me born of not wanting to waste anybody's time. I'm the guy who never tells a shaggy dog joke because I just don't want to waste your time.
Well, you also, when you're working on the show, you have a very limited amount of time for exposition.
Yes.
So you guys want to pack as much stuff in.
Required by TV. And on stage, I've been watching tapes of myself on stage, and I realized you can slow down, you can chill out, you don't have to move around so much.
But that might not be the Adam Savage that people have come to expect.
The performer in me has always reviewed old material and sort of augmented and modified to get a certain effect and to make sure that I'm communicating what I want to communicate. That's it. Yeah, that I'm communicating what I want to communicate. And when I see extraneous stuff or that I'm moving too fast or burning through past a concept too quickly, I definitely take note and slow it down. I mean, literally write notes like, don't touch your face.
Yeah.
That's one thing I learned on TV. Don't ever touch your face on camera. It looks like you have scabies. It's like Toshiro Mifune.
Well, or you could blow by a joke or, whatever. If you don't give the audience the time to laugh. I mean, Steve Martin does that, is famous for doing that, right? Yeah. Never giving the audience time for release until they just explode.
And it's a brilliant technique. I found in this last tour of Behind the Myths some amazing places where I could slow way down and the response was twice as much because I was, I'm doing something I do every night. I have to remind myself that it's still thrilling. It's still scary for the audience. And I can let them revel in that fear and that excitement and draw that moment out and make something out of it instead of just going right past it.
So when you guys wrap up for another season of Behind the Myths, so this is probably the third tour, really? kind of 3.5
so
maybe.
We're tickets go on sale soon. We're going to do Australia and New Zealand this summer, and then we're looking towards another North American tour in the late fall, November, December. So yeah, I guess it would be the third and fourth leg of an ongoing tour.
Yeah. So will you? I mean, at some point, do you just say, okay, we're going to start from the ground up and maybe bring back one or two old favorites? There's some serious honking going on out there.
What is going on out there?
It's St. Patrick's Day. We got to get the hell out of the city.
Cheese and crow.
This is
Kiss my ass. I'm Irish.
Amateur day.
All of the above.
Okay.
We are. Jamie and I don't want to do the same thing every single day. So
Jamie is notoriously against doing the same thing every day. Just to be clear.
And I want the show to be really fresh. So we're working right now on rejiggering the show from the ground up conceptually, moving big chunks around, coming up with some entirely new set pieces, modifying some old ones and augmenting them, making them better.
Okay.
We learned a lot on this last tour, and I want to put it all into the next.
Very good. Well, I feel like we got a lot of ground here.
Yeah, yes. So I want to say something about public speaking that happened to me early on was that I came off, I was doing an art show with a poetry reading, and I was the introducer, I was the MC, and I came off stage, and this girl I used to know named Panda, her name was Panda. Panda was awesome. Panda came up and said, "That was really great. You were so relaxed, you made the audience relaxed." And that was one of those key little moments that I've never forgotten, that even if you're tense, if you literally relax your shoulders and think, I'm breathing. Okay, cool. And like, make sure you're behaving as a relaxed person. You will note your response from the audience being calmer. And time moves so much more quickly on stage than it does in real life, that you think, oh, right, Blue. You think that pause is really long in your head because people are waiting for you. On stage, it's like, not at all.
Yeah.
You got more time than you think. And it takes, that
time distortions. It's that, and also, only 5 minutes.
Yeah. Look, the first time we did Letterman, it felt like it lasted all of about 6 seconds. And I'm sure that Dave could see all the jokes and responses coming from miles away because he's when you practice anything, it slows down for you. But the key lesson to me is relax, relax, relax. Relax your body, relax your voice, relax your breathing, and you will do substantively better because you are more interesting to watch.
So hold on, I'm going to go back again. Does that mean when you go in for a talk like South by, did you practice that? Were you practicing that in the hotel room? Were you practicing it before you came out? Or had you just built the structure in your head and delivered it?
So it often depends upon how comfortable and familiar I am with the material I'm putting down. With South by, I had been working it for so long that I didn't do a practice run through of the material until about 3 hours before, and I did it about probably 15 or 20 times.
So you did that so you'd know how long you were going to run and kind of find the beats on the slides.
I started working through stuff, and it's mostly like polishing off the rough spots. So I'm going. That transition felt weird. Okay, let me see what's wrong with that. And I go and I find pictures, or I'll find a rhythm or a cadence or a link that works. And then start from a little bit back from that, go until the next one doesn't quite work. And then I go through it again. I start at the beginning and I do the same thing again. And, I take little breaks, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to, watch some TV and take a bath and then jump back into it. And each time I'm finding new stuff, just like editing, writing.
Yeah.
You write something, you read it the next day, you're like, I'm a terrible writer.
Well, or you're just like, wow, this is a terrible transition between paragraphs, but it would be really easy if I changed 3 words. And
exactly.
You're like, that's much better.
Exactly.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you.
If you would like to know more about this topic, we have.
Would you like to know more?
This is not. Hold on.
At the bottom.
Just to be clear, this podcast is not the tool of a fascist state.
You're some big kind of brain bug, aren't you?
You can
My
find
favorite
out.
part is the resignation of the previous admirals.
Did they shoot themselves? Or
No.
No.
It's like they promote the admiral. Idea failed. New admiral comes in with a new idea.
Yeah. Right.
We'll be back next week with more.
We'll be back next
This
week.
is still Untitled.
Will was about to say.
I was about to say-
know more about this topic.
Yes.
We did shoot premium video.
Thank you,
Yes.
Norm.
At
We
South
did.
by Southwest, an interview right after your immediate response, right after the keynote.
was very cool.
Raw reactions.
Raw reactions. It's on the site right now. Just click the link below or in the annotations.
Thanks very
What
much,
Norm
guys.
said. See you guys next week.
See you next week.
Bye.